Hello, everybody. Hello, I am back, and so is Liam. This is our weekly podcast about music, tech news, guitar news, applause, and everything else. And we are coming to you live from YouTube, from Twitch, through Periscope, through Facebook, and for now, through Mixer. Yes, so that's only going to happen for about the next 3 weeks. That's a turn up for the books, isn't it? Were
you saw that coming?
Well, you're far more into game streams than I am. Did you have any inkling of this? And hang on,
the only thing I'd say is that Xbox removed Mixer from their home screen as prominently as it used to be a few months ago, but they did include it on the recent preview of the Xbox Series X home screen. So it's surprising from that front because it looked like they were still contemplating it being part of the ecosystem until very recently. So
well, that was really weird. Sorry, the stream was just going out at 10 megabit for some reason, despite the fact the settings said 5. I changed it down to 4995 kilobits, and suddenly it's behaving itself. That was weird. That means that your video quality should improve again in a second, because I think it was just killing the bandwidth. But yes, we're going to be talking about quite a lot tonight. There's a lot going on this week. Apple are ditching Intel. Kurt Cobain's iconic MTV Unplugged guitar sold for a lot of money. NAMM are doing a virtual summit for the summer. And more. Oh, and Live Nation are absolutely stiffing everybody next year on gigs. So there's a lot to talk about. But it's an important thing to cover. So, yes, all that and more on this week's Hot Poll podcast. Roll the intro. I do need to make a new version of that where the audio fades out, because that's hilarious how it just kind of stops. But yes, I hope everybody's doing well out there in their homes and wherever else you may be, but you're likely in your homes because of the whole lockdown thing.
It's too warm.
I'm drinking lots and lots
of
water.
North of England. This isn't allowed.
Yes, we are practically Scandinavian. This is just not right.
No.
Drinking lots and lots of water and sweating, and I have my shirt open far lower than is usually acceptable, apart from on days like this.
Yeah, I've had to resort to bandana territory to keep my hair off my my face because I can't have a haircut, and I can't have a haircut in a heat wave.
Surely you've got clippers somewhere. You keep the dog's fur trimmed, right?
I do, but it will require me to let Ash loose on my hair, which I'm going to have to do at some point, but I'm just trying to hold off on it.
Just do it yourself and give up and go for the tennis ball.
Yeah.
Yeah,
my head's too big for that.
Well, I would hope it's bigger than a tennis ball. That'd be weird otherwise. But yeah, it's been
like one of those giant ones you see at Wimbledon.
Yeah. The mascot ones, yeah. So yeah, it's been a busy week for us before we talk about the news. I've had a lot of deliveries today, I've got my classic Sennheiser 421 with me. That's not arrived today, but what has arrived is a solder station, a proper soldering station rather than a soldering iron, because this thing, wonderful 421 that it is, it's seen a hard life. The XLR was wired not just backwards, but completely wrong, it turns out. Because it's been out of phase for the entire time that I've had it. And a lot of the time I've just been like, oh, I'll just press the phase button on the thing. And then just out of curiosity, I cracked it open, and all the wires, whoever's wired it up has done it completely wrong. So I changed them all around, because traditionally these old 41s didn't have XLR on them. They had an older connector called a 2-shell connector. So somebody's obviously converted it at some point and wired it in however they felt like, and just got some sound out of it and gone, that'll do. So yeah, I'm going to be using it with other microphones, and that can be a real pain. But yeah, I'm going to be doing a lot of guitar captures at some point in the future. So I finally got my SM7B back. This is now repaired and works.
Ooh.
Yeah, it took forever.
Ooh.
It had to be sent to Shaw to get a replacement capsule because the entire capsule had died, which is just unheard of. So that
am I still getting that, or am I not allowed it anymore?
If you want it, actually, yeah, you can use it. Strangely enough,
podcast.
Yeah.
Get rid of this.
Yeah, if you want to be
You're currently using an NT3 or NT1?
NT3.
NT3, yeah.
Yeah, because
my first ever mic.
Yes.
This mic is 20 years old.
And it's still decent, I've got to say. You had a good choice there. But yeah, if you want to be the Mac...
Yeah, it's got a little ding on the grill, but other than that, it did. Yeah, it's got a little ding on the grill from when I was recording Seb's band.
Yeah.
In
but yeah,
God knows when, the early 2000s.
You want to be a Mac Daddy of the podcast, you want an SM7B, there you go.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
Yeah, I'll be bringing
and
that.
I mean, and also I suppose if it's here, then if it needs to be put in the studio, it's what, 10-second walk.
Yeah. Well, I've also down in the studio got a Rode pod mic, which was the one I was using, which is now back safely in its box. So if ever we need to swap them out, it's just there. I spent some time this week organising the studio, so all our microphones are back in their boxes on nice little shelves. It's very pretty. I got another one. Go on.
I'm just going to stop my video for a second. I'll still be here for audio. Just going to try something.
Okay. Will you burb? It usually has a thing that says, "We'll be right back, burb."
Yeah, no, I'm literally stopping OBS to try something.
Oh. Yes. Well, I may as well keep talking because I have more microphones. I quite often on guitar cabs I'll use a Sennheiser 609, which is kind of the flat thing. And someone suggested to me, you should get yourself a Sennheiser 409. They're the really good ones. They're the old vintage ones. You just can't find them. But on eBay, there's a guy who gets the capsules from 409s that have been kind of battered and seen war and rehouses them in a new housing. So this, to all intents and purposes, is a Sennheiser 409. So this is a proper vintage Sennheiser microphone. And so that's going to sound amazing on guitar cabinets. I'm very much looking forward to that. That came today from Holland. And last but not least, I decided to bite the bullet and buy myself an Aston Origin because I reviewed this a while back. And at the time, if I remember rightly, it was around the time that Ivy was born and I was kind of, strapped for cash as you usually are as a new dad. And so I sent it back and I've been lusting after one since. So it was on an absolute steal of a deal. So I got myself one of these Aston Origins, which apparently you can run over with a truck and it'll carry on going. I'm not intending to do that, but the fact is that you probably could. So yes, I'm very much looking forward to using the Origin as well. I've got a box full of stuff.
Back.
Yeah, you are back. Got a box full of stuff next to me, but they're the really interesting things. I mean, a lot of the rest of the stuff is to do with soldering, which isn't particularly interesting. Try 609 on Toms. Yeah, I've tried the 609 on Toms. I found it to be boring. Very boring. It didn't sound bad, but 609s are infamously kind of flat and neutral. And if there's anything I want out of Toms, it's not that. So it's perfectly functional. And I like stuff like the 421 that I've got on Toms because it has a very definite boominess and a very definite attack. And I like that kind of thing. I mean, a lot of people use things like condensers or a lot on close mics these days, and I'm not a big fan of that either because it's quite clinical, quite clean. I do like things to have a bit of character where you hit a drum and everybody goes, ooh, rather than, yeah. They go, oh, wow, okay, right, yes. So yeah, that's just my personal take on things though. The 609 I've always found quite good if you've got a guitar amp that is too much of something. It kind of tames that down, but the 409 apparently has its own character, so I'm excited to try that out. Because yes. I'm getting some new cabs I probably talked about last week from Zilla. So I'm really going all out capturing these because I'm getting a base Fat Boy, which I talked to Paul from Zilla yesterday and he's finishing that over the weekend. So that's going to be good. And there's a guitar monitor wedge speaker that he's making for me as well. So that's going to be great when they turn up.
Nice.
And yeah, so that's kept me busy this week. Those are the main things that have been incoming. I also got, and this is really getting into the nerdy weeds, these connectors, these have been snipped off something, but these, if I open it, are what are called Canon Power XLRs. These they've not made in many, many years, but these are what you need to power the BBC preamps that we have. And the problem we've always had with that is we only had 2 or 3 power cables for it, and we have 5 racks worth. And actually, just finding these has just been nigh on impossible. But I found I've got a saved eBay listing, and they came up, and I instantly just went, yes, click, I'll have them. They don't look very nice, they don't look very clean, but Canon, the company, haven't made these in probably 40 years. So take what you can. Brush it up a bit, clean it up, get it going.
Nice.
Yes.
Excited to see that.
Yeah. I recently had a bit of a rediscovery of our BBC preamps that I decided to start using my shotgun mic through it just for voiceover and stuff. And it sounds so much better than the modern preamps. It just jumps out at you. It sounds great.
Really?
Yeah, and I didn't think there'd be that much difference, and there really was. Because we got that mic splitter, haven't we? That so I use that to power mics that need phantom power. But I sent one channel to a BBC preamp and another channel out to my Slate VMS1 preamp, which is really modern, really clean. It's supposed to be clean because it's designed to be used with modeling, that kind of thing. And I matched the levels exactly. And the VMS mic sounded okay. And then I switched to the BBC preamp and it jumped out the speakers at me. It was noticeably more forward, louder, like more saturated, more nice. But the levels were identical. That fascinated me. That I even zoomed in on the waveforms to look for like distortion and stuff, and they looked the same. But they weren't. They were not the same. And they were both going into the same converters as well. They were both going into my RME ADI2 converters, which are some of the cleanest conversion that I've got. And yeah, the difference was stunning. I was like, right, I'm doing this more from now on. It was that much of a difference that it was like, yes, okay, I'm in.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So, and I remember I didn't use them as much because they had quite a high noise floor. And it must have been the converters or something, because I compared the cleanest preamp I have back to back with one of the BBC preamps, and there was just no noise flow, even with heavy compression. And yeah, and that confused the hell out of me. So then, because we've got 6 or 7 different ones of these preamps, I tried switching them all out and going, surely there must have been a bad one. None of them. They were all perfect. So yeah, I've ordered a load of capacitors which arrived yesterday. I'm going to swap the capacitors out in those preamps just because you're supposed to do that every 20 or 30 years, because when they get old, they're prone to leak, and if they leak, they corrode onto the board and irreparably damage the thing. So you literally just swap those out part for part, and then you're good for another 20 or 30 years, and you're off. So that's what I'm going to do at some point. Not for a couple of weeks yet, I don't think, because it's all about finding the time. But now I've got a nice solder station that actually tells me the exact temperature of my soldering iron. I know I'm not going to melt anything that I shouldn't be melting. So that's...
yeah, that's not good.
No, but it's much more reassuring to know that I've got a proper, decent setup now. because my previous soldering iron, which for some reason I cannot find anywhere, has variable temperature, which was great, but it's wandered off. So yeah, that was fun. And so I thought, you know what? I've turned the studio upside down looking for it. I've turned my house upside down looking for it. It's decided to go on its merry way. And I'll bet tomorrow it just turns up. Now I've ordered its replacement. Yes. It's going to be fun. Anyway. Yes.
I mean, that's one of the cool things about our studio as well, is that we have some of the gear like this that you don't find elsewhere. And I think it's really cool to see it being put and mixed in with the digital stuff. And that's one of the things that we've kind of always done from the beginning with the studio, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is try the old with the new and try combinations that people have. I mean, we can definitely say that we've tried combinations that no one else in the world will have done, given some of the really weird and wacky stuff that we've got.
Absolutely.
Mainly because we started the studio completely broke.
Yes, we very much did. And that's probably why I thought the BBC preamps had a lot of noise on, because I was probably using them into much lower grade line preamps and converters at the time, because it was what we had. It was what we could afford.
I mean, I have seen people online saying that they do have quite a high noise floor, but again, maybe they were doing similar things to yourself.
Yeah, maybe. Like, it's all relative as well. It could be that if I compress the life out of them, that suddenly there's quite a bit of noise. But at that point, it's the kind of thing where it's horses for courses. If you're absolutely compressing the life out of something, you're using that as a means to an end, and at that point, you start asking different questions. So, yeah, maybe. So, yeah, a lot has happened in the news. So I think it's time for Cue the Sound.
I've got the wrong thing up. There we go.
It's time for the news.
The news. And I got my nice screen swipe back. So let's start with our headline topic, because this is one that last week we talked about it and you absolutely called it, that Apple are going full ARM processor. They're doing it. So this is going to be fun. But I don't think after the first year, I don't think it's going to be too bad, because the Intel Macs are going to be around for quite a long time for a start. And, you want to create the crooked piece of foam? There you go. The pieces of foam are actually mounted to CDRs, so they're entirely adjustable. So that's just off topic. Yeah, this being my home office, I can just... Yeah, I'm not allowed to permanently fix anything with it being a rental property, but what I can do is I can do that. So, yeah. And then put things on hideously off kilter. So, back to topic. I talked to Shane McPhee, the designer behind Kazrog, who makes True Iron and all the thermionic amps. And I talked to him last week about this, and he was like, "Oh, I don't know, man. I don't think it's going to happen." And then when it did, and I told him before he found out from anybody else, his first reaction was, like, not good. But then we talked again the next day, and he'd kind of come around on the idea, because we'd been talking about maybe him. I'd asked him if he could develop one of his plugins for Raspberry Pi, which is also based on ARM, which is same as the iPad, same as iOS, same as iPhones, same as Android devices, actually, when we're thinking about it. And his first reaction was, well, I'm doing better with the Intel stuff. And it turns out that it's mostly because the framework that he's running is perfectly cross-compatible over everything. But something that made me think was that the way that development has gone on plugins, they're now very, very complex to get a really nice sound. And the way that you can do that is by using a lot of optimization. Because, I mean, let's say that I had the best guitar amp simulator in the world, but on a quad-core processing, fairly decent machine that most people have at home, I could run one copy of it and that's it, and nothing else, because it would crash. Nobody would buy it. Everybody would want their money back, no matter how good it sounded, because it's practically unusable. So what Shane's done for the past several years, and I would imagine most developers have done for several years, is found ways to optimize the maths behind a lot of these processes so that the CPU usage is very low, but the sound is the same.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're all very Intel specific optimizations that, from what I gather, he could build, or any of these developers could build their sound into a plugin that works for an ARM processor in maybe a day, 2 days. Not a problem, doable. But to do that, the optimizations in the code would have to be swapped out for far more generic mathematical code, which would be much more demanding on the ARM CPUs, which means that in the short term at least, the amount of CPU usage for plugins is going to skyrocket until these developers can really get a grip of how to optimize properly for ARM. So that's something that fascinated me, is it's very different to, I think it's 14, 15 years ago that Apple switched from IBM's PowerPC over to Intel, and there was that was a major issue at the time. I don't know if you had any Apple stuff around then, did you? Like the G4s and G5s when they switched over to Intel, very early Intel Macs.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was at uni, so it was my first experience really with powerful computers, and every computer in the edit suite, the thinking then was it had to be a Mac, otherwise you couldn't edit video. So we had to invest and raise money for the Filmmaking Society to buy one of the proper Mac Pros at the time. That was that white case that slightly went in the either side, if you remember that one. And it was amazing. And like I had a computer that I built myself at home, and when I tried to edit something compared to using Final Cut in the edit suite, it was night and day. Like it just couldn't you couldn't compete with that. And then it was about that time that they moved over to Intel.
Yeah.
I believe.
It was
things changed.
Yeah. One of my friends at the time had bought a really powerful Mac Pro, the original cheese grater Mac Pro that was just after the G5 when they just switched to Intel, and it came with a thing called Rose.
Or maybe the one I'm talking about wasn't called a Mac Pro, but you know what I mean. Whatever the equivalent was at the time.
Yeah.
The big Macs.
Yeah, well, no, I think they were all the Mac Pro, because there was a Mac Pro that was IBM PowerPC that was the G5, which, the big grey tower.
Yeah.
And they moved to Intel, and you could still run PowerPC programs using Rosetta, which was basically an emulator. And it made things run slow as hell. Even when you had because at the time he had the Mac Daddy, which was 2 dual core Xeons. I mean, in something that you could have in a house, that was unheard of back in 2005, 2006, whenever it was. It was around then. That was an absolute monster, but you tried to run old PowerPC stuff, it wasn't happening. And I think the reason for that was no one had really done that kind of cross-compiling at the time, and nobody had been, on the Mac side at least, developing for Intel architecture at all. And I think that's really quite different now, because iOS is so big. It's not the same, but the underlying code for a lot of the processes that run behind the scenes will be the same. as what the developers would want to use on the desktop. And I think that's really interesting. Like there's a virtual guitar amp maker called Audio Assault who have just released quite a few of their amps, both on desktop, Mac and PC as x86, but also on iOS for iPad and iPhone as ARM-based stuff. Now, of course, the ARM-based stuff has a different interface because it's all touch. But if these guys have already developed the desktop version, so they have a GUI, and they've already developed the code where the audio works on ARM, how much more work is it going to take them to overlay the desktop GUI on the ARM audio code?
Mm-hmm.
Compared to completely writing the thing from scratch, I don't think that's going to take them very long. And I think any other developer who's got a handle on ARM code, I mean, even if they hired in someone who is good with making desktop GUIs, I don't think it's going to be that long before it's going to be half decent integration across the board compared to what we had last time. So I think it's going to be, because there are so many ARM developers now and there are so many Mac desktop developers already, even if a company doesn't have both of them, I can't see it being as bad because there's already a resource pool there that didn't exist the first time round. Am I making any sense?
Yeah, I'm following.
Yeah, because I mean, a lot of companies right now, this will be a shock, and they'll be going, "Oh, well, we haven't made our software for ARM at all." But then how?
Yeah, but Premiere have obviously been told in advance because apparently they're already working on Photoshop. They've said.
Yeah, well, that's it. There's a version of Photoshop on ARM right now. It's not fully featured, but I think the fact that it exists at all and has quite a number of those features means that they already had a very clear understanding a couple of years back, and they've got the jump on it. So now all they have to do is look at the underlying maths behind a lot of their processes on desktop, and then they will have to recode them for ARM, but the principles arguably won't change. But then, like I was saying about optimization, at that point they then start to dig into, well, how do we make this run fast? And but I don't think even that's going to be the biggest thing, because offloading to GPUs is kind of the done thing these days for things like Photoshop and Premiere, and it never used to be back when in the IBM PowerPC days. Everything was CPU based. And we were talking earlier today about how Premiere natively now can read H.264 and H.265 by offloading that to a graphics card. So a lot of the processing is just offloaded. And to a point, the Adobe guys don't even have to code for that. They literally just make a call and say, this file, NVIDIA graphics card, you're the driver, you give me a result, please. It's kind of, that's how, at a coding level, that's generally how that works. And I know from doing a lot of editing, like I was saying last week, I was editing videos on my phone. iOS, well, Apple's version of the ARM chips have that feature inbuilt already. So it's not exactly the same, but the call just has to be changed. So instead of saying NVIDIA graphics card, you decode this for me, it's going graphics part of ARM chip, you decode this for me and give me back a result. And so
right, so I understand. So by moving to ARM also means that they won't be including any graphics cards either.
That's a good question.
Right, will you still have like a 2080 in one of these Macs, or will it just be the ARM chip and their own graphics processing as well?
That's a very good question, and I suppose that remains to be seen. That's interesting. That plays into what you were saying last week about it's not for professionals anymore. Because although if they can, Yeah, if they can get PCI Express working with ARM processors, and I can't see any reason why not, then it would require the graphics card manufacturers to work with them, which means I reckon if they do that, it's going to be AMD only and not NVIDIA. Because
Yeah, I was going to say, I think Intel may end up having a word at that point.
Intel? What do you mean?
Yeah, I feel like, I don't know, there needs to be, with all these companies, it's in everyone's best interest. So if Mac are moving away from Intel, then for NVIDIA to then start making graphics cards for them, whilst they can't stop them, I don't know, certain pressures with things can be put in place. I don't know.
Maybe.
I feel like it might be a bit of a kick in the teeth for Intel right now.
Oh, it'll be a huge kick in the teeth for Intel, but
so if they can find a way to stop, maybe not maliciously, but like incentivize NVIDIA positively to not help Apple going forward.
Well, interestingly, I don't think NVIDIA have liked Apple for several years now anyway. If you look closely at pretty much any professional Mac for the last 5 or 6 years, you won't find NVIDIA in it at all. I believe Christian was one of the last owners to have a Mac with an NVIDIA graphics card in it, pretty much full stop. They just...
so they've been AMD for a while. I've missed that.
Yeah. You can get NVIDIA drivers for like the Mac Pros in a way, maybe, but the support isn't amazing. But yeah, I mean, look at the 2013 Mac Pro, the trash can. That was AMD, all AMD. All of the iMacs and Mac Pros, all AMD, yeah.
Yeah, the iMac that we've got is AMD as well.
Yeah, they all are. They just... They're not friends anymore. It's so if I think what they're doing is they're going to still use AMD for graphics. Maybe. I couldn't confirm that. That's entirely speculation. But the entire point of this exercise, I think, is to cut Intel and NVIDIA completely out. And interestingly, they keep calling it... They don't call it ARM. They call it Apple Silicon, which is definitely a branding thing because it's all made by two companies who are not Apple. They don't have their own fabs. They don't have their own chip fabrication plants. So it's all made by either TSMC or Samsung. And so, that's going to be interesting, having Apple desktops that have possibly got Samsung parts in, but not Intel. I mean... The desktop industry is really losing faith in Intel at the moment. It's fascinating watching the whole kind of thing crumble. I reckon they'll make a resurgence in the next few years, but it's going to take some doing to come back now.
It always. I mean, we talked about this before on the show. Like you get this war between Intel and AMD, and like Intel take the lead for a long time, then maybe get a little bit slack on it, and then AMD come up with something that makes them rethink, and then the clever people at Intel come up with something and they blow them out of the water again and push things forward. And it's kind of like, I don't know, I kind of almost feel like it's AMD's job to push the industry forward by making sure that Intel don't sit on the laurels, because when they do, that's when AMD take over and do something revolutionary.
Yeah.
And it can last for a good few years. Like we talked about before, when the quad-core processors, like my old editing computer, and that was at uni as well. So that was like the first thing of I went from using Macs to then there wasn't an Intel computer that could compare, but then the quad cores came out on AMD and I bought the first one of those and it was amazing. I was able to edit a feature film on it in real time, shooting in HD. Granted, only 720, but it's because HD was brand new and you couldn't shoot in 1080 on a camera that didn't cost more than a house.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it'll come around again.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see what they come back with, because apparently they've just cracked their method for using extreme ultraviolet to make the lithography, the stencils for chips. So where TSMC got that a good few years ago, there's a lot of trade secrets they're not sharing with each other. So, yeah, that's how TSMC have got the advantage, which is why a lot of the ARM processors that they make and a lot of the chiplets that they make for AMD are all years ahead. It's because they are literally years ahead, because the technology that they have is just ahead of the game. It's very, very interesting. But yeah, there's so much marketing guff around it because Apple. I'll be very interested to see how they do, though, because something that I was, again, talking to Shane from Kazrog about is that once a lot of the audio guys start programming for things like ARM, they don't have to necessarily program just for Apple for ARM, because then they can work for Android stuff and for stuff like Raspberry Pis as well, which opens a very different market segment. Because, I mean, I've got a Raspberry Pi.
Is the Raspberry Pi market big enough?
Well, I think it's getting big, and it's growing fast. Like Raspberry Pis, they are selling millions. Like I've got one here. The reason I've got one is they are so affordable. This new was about £35. How much does an iPhone cost? Lots. How much does a powerful enough desktop to do like a full mix currently cost? And I mean, at the cheap end, we're probably talking £400 or £500.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it depends what you can harvest from any old machines that you've got.
Right. But yeah,
you can get a case and stuff out of it and power supply and whatever, maybe 300-400. But yeah, otherwise 500 or so.
Yeah, talking new hardware though, because that's what I mean. This was that wasn't a second-hand price for this. That was the new price. And there's a more powerful one out already.
Did it include the case?
No, but the case was about £6.
Okay. So £6 on top. Given when you're talking on such low prices, that's what, like a 20% increase in price.
But you can make your own case for nothing. You can have no case if you so desire. And anyway, you can load up Reaper on this on Raspbian. You can plug in an audio interface like one of the Behringer ones, like the UMC2, which you can get for £20. And if there are any virtual guitar amps that run on ARM, I've then got pretty much a real-time entire virtual guitar amp that sounds as good as the desktop ones, because it's, apart from being a different processor, probably the same code. And I can record with that, and I can have the best sound that anyone's ever had for under £100 compared to only 5 years ago, where the cost barrier to entry was so much higher. And if there's anything I've learned in the last 5 or 10 years, the bulk of the money that a company can make is not from the top 0.1% of people. It's from the 99%. And so if you've got 99% of people who can afford one of these and 1 or 2 guitar amp sims or something like that, that's, statistically speaking, a lot more people are going to buy your product if you price it low enough. And so, yeah, I mean, if you make a guitar amp sim, you're going to charge $200 for it to 1,000 people. Or are you going to charge $10 to it for 1 million people? Which one makes you all the money?
Well, yeah, if you've got the market.
Yeah, so that's it. A lot of a market. I think it's a big potential market right now rather than being a pre-existing market. But because the barrier to entry is so low, that's always been a big deal. Like, look at vintage computing. When do countries and entire swathes of people get into a thing like computing? They do it when it's cheap. When it's cheap and easily available and the software is there to match it, boom, you get millions of people will adopt whatever that thing is. Like the coding boom in the late 70s, early 80s in this country, most households who had a vague interest in computing would have had a ZX Spectrum, and all the kids could program. And the reason they had a ZX Spectrum is because they were cheap, really cheap compared to anything else, and you could go to a local shop and get a cassette with a new game on it for like 50p. You
could also record them on the radio.
You could indeed. Which again helped it proliferate, and then for every, every X number of people who didn't pay for the software, someone probably did. And that's how a market was born. Because...
No, I mean, you can legally do it. Like national, like Radio 1 would... I know it's actually Radio 1, but major radio stations, as like advertisement for stuff, would play games after midnight that you could then record to say, we're going to play the game now for the next 30 minutes. Hit record on your tape player in 10 seconds.
Yeah, right.
I remember doing it as a kid. It was nuts.
Yeah, yeah, that really happened. It's absolutely bananas. Yeah, I mean,
crazy
if you want to spend a little bit more, as Marty just said in chat, the Audion Evo 4, which Liam is using right now, £99 at Anderton's for one of them.
Mm-hmm.
That is very affordable for something that's not cheap. I mean,
it's really well made as well, really sturdy, and it looks good. Like, the design of it looks really slick. It looks really good on your desk.
Yeah. Absolutely. Anyway, I think we should move on to the next topic, because this topic is going to go for a long time. I think we're going to be coming back to it many times.
Kind of a wait and see thing, really. In a lot of ways.
Yeah. There's a lot of speculation, but it's going to be something I think we'll return to a lot. So, onward. So, TC Electronics. A lot of people who are into guitars probably have a Ditto looper lying around somewhere. I've seen them on most guitarist boards or in a drawer because you can get them cheap. And it's kind of the thing now. Everybody's got a distortion pedal and a looper. And maybe a tuner if you're lucky. And the old Ditto was this tiny little slim pedal, and you held down the button, played some stuff, let go, and it keeps playing and playing and playing. You can play on the top of that. The new Ditto Plus is out now. And it's got a screen, and it's actually got buttons. So it's a massive upgrade over the previous one. Yeah, it's got 24-bit uncompressed audio, which is what you really need if you don't want things to get crap sounding quickly. It's got a 60-minute looper. Who in the right mind plays for 60 minutes, and at the end of that 60 minutes, they go, right, okay, now I'm going to play that entire set again on top.
People that make background music for D&D.
Maybe. And you just have it on instead of a music player, you just have it on a pedal.
Yeah,
maybe. But yeah, I mean, apparently it's got 99 memory slots. I think I can see a USB connection. Oh no, that's a power connection. I'm hoping this has USB, because if it does, a lot of loopers that I've seen people using over the years, and because I went to a music tech kind of university, I saw a lot of this as early tech when people were getting into it. People would load up, like preload a part of the song or most of a song's loop, so they didn't have to play in things like drums and samples and stuff. And they could just press play at the start of the song and it would go. And that makes it far more versatile, I think. That you can just choose a song or a loop and you can then go. But because it's got a screen, there's something that the old Ditto never had, which is once you've recorded a loop, you can actually see when it starts and when the loop's about to end. Because with the old one, you didn't see a thing. You just had to use your ears and hope. Oh, Marty says it supports backing tracks. Thank you, Marty. That is exactly what I was talking about. Yeah, so loading up backing tracks, essentially. Using it that way, you could put an entire hour's worth of a set on there of stuff that you're playing along to through the same pedal. So especially if you're like an acoustic guitarist, so you're going through a full range PA system, that could be a one-stop solution live. That's really quite impressive that now a single pedal, which is probably going to be very affordable, price is to be confirmed. But
that's pretty cool.
Yeah. That changes a lot, because it used to be, I've never seen a guitarist with an old Ditto do more than either 4 or 8 bars and then start playing along with it, because with no screen and no way to add backing tracks, it's all guesswork, and any more than that, it's just a memory game at that point, and you are just hoping against hope. Yeah. But yeah, this is going to be very interesting. Thank you very much, Al, for the donation. Donations are always gratefully received.
Ooh.
Yes, indeed. So,
thank you.
yes, indeed. Let's move on to this one. This is interesting. iZotope Stutter Edit, the creative stutter effects. Do you remember the old Stutter Edit, which was the software? Kind of you could do basically that, and there was a whole genre that basically came out because of it. All the Skrillexy type stuff. Basically came around this. So BT, who's
I used to do some stuff like that manually in Fruity Loops with the splice tool.
I've done some of it manually as well. But Stutter Edit.
It's a pain in the ass.
Yes, Stutter Edit 2 is out, and it's far more comprehensive than the old one. It's got distortion inbuilt, chorusing, and reverbs and flanges and all sorts of. It's got the classic tape stops. You can go in there, and it's of course it's going to come with a ton of presets, so you can play around with it. And it's taken them a decade to not only come back to it, but have the conversations between BT and Stutter Edit of what does this actually need that it was missing the first time, and refining it until it's something more than it used to be. Which I think is very cool. And so that's out now. And it's on sale at £176, which is not cheap for a plugin that basically goes. But
no,
it does a lot more than that. But it's the kind of thing where people have been using the previous version of Stutter Edit for the last decade. If you work in the kind of genres, electronic stuff, especially where this is an effect that you very much can't do without, might be exactly the thing you're looking for. And I am going to be doing a full review and demo of this because iZotope have been good to get in contact, and I have a copy of it. So I will be going through it and playing with it. I've got that drum and bassy kind of track that I was doing for the NAMM show that never quite got finished. So this is going to be the magic ingredient. I'm going to finish it off with this. So probably next week I'll be getting to grips with Stutter Edit 2 and then making a video. So very much looking forward to that.
Look forward to that.
Yeah, because it'll be, I just make a vocal note like, and it goes, So it's going to be like having some sort of kookaburra in the studio. It's going to be great. Now from the software to the hardware. Moore are releasing the GE300 Lite, which is like their previous multi-pedal, the GE300. But it's also cheaper. And so apparently they've stripped down the hardware, and it's just going to be more affordable than the big boy version, but with the same sound quality. It's got plenty of onboard effects. Looks like it's still got plenty of I/O here. It's still got USB. It's got one MIDI connection that's either in or out, depending on what you want that to be. Which I suppose makes sense because a lot of the time with pedals, you don't need MIDI in and out these days on a pedal like this. You either are going to use it to control other stuff, or you're going to use something else to control it, and you're not really going to do both. So that makes sense to me. And there's a lot going on, but if you want to use this on a board with like a MIDI switcher, you could have this on the board and control it separately. But it's €499, so Moore are definitely getting into the big boy pricing with that. That's not cheap. And not that long ago, I would have written off Moore as one of the cheap Chinese clone companies, but they've ascended beyond that, that's for sure. And when I saw the Ocean Machine pedal that they made, which was the Devon Townsend signature pedal, he did a full demo of what it could do, and I was just sat there with my mouth open going, I've never seen a pedal do some of this stuff before. This is real top tier stuff. Does it take IRs? I have no idea. Oh, You can also load your own IRs, it says in the article. Yes, it does say that exactly there. So yes, this is their direct competition with something like the Line 6 Helix. But yeah, the Ocean Machine, it was a thing, it has 2 delays and a reverb all in the same pedal. And you could do some really crazy stuff in real time, changing it all. But then you could switch the order of them round, like the delays and the reverbs, without changing presets, without any gap, without any silence. It would just keep making sound and just switch them live, which if you've ever used any multi-effects pedal, you change preset, what happens? They go silent for a second. If you remember with your Boss multi-pedal, if you remember using your ME whatever it was,
yeah,
I don't know if you ever would have noticed, but you press a pedal for the next sound and there's a tiny little gap.
Yeah, there would be, yeah.
Yeah. But Moore have managed to make it so that's not a thing. Like, you can change all the effects and all that kind of stuff, and it just doesn't stop. Very, very, very clever. So, yes.
Cool.
Might see if I can play around with one of those, because that's, yeah.
How much is it again?
€499. Definitely not aimed at the cheaper side of the market, and that's the light version, because the proper G300 is more than that. Yeah. So from that to very expensive in terms of guitars, or at least I thought this was quite pricey. PRS have now made their hollow body 2 piezo guitar, which in their American range is one of my favorite guitars. It's the one that kind of resonates and has F holes and stuff. They've now made an SE version, which is made in Korea, which is very, very pretty and is supposed to be more affordable. I have seen that the prices on these are about 1,300 quid, though, for an SE model. That's a lot of money.
That is a lot of money.
That's a lot of money for something that's not made in the US. I mean, it's got the piezo pickup, which means like the nice sparkly acousticy type sound. It's also got, you can see in the picture there, it's got 2 outputs, so you can either have both coming out or you can split them, which is really useful. So you can send the piezo sound to an acoustic like simulator or IR or whatever, and have the normal pickups go to an amp. So, like John Petrucci from Dream Theater does this a lot. That on the cleanish kind of sounds when he's playing live, he'll send the piezo pickup out to a Fishman box that emulates an acoustic guitar at the same time that the magnetic pickups go to a clean channel on his amp. And it sounds massive. It sounds a mile wide, and he's just one guitarist. And it's a very, very clever thing to do. But yeah, I mean, this is a very nice guitar. You can see that the binding here is all nice flamed maple. That's not cheap to do. And
no.
We're not going to get into the argument of the pronunciation of pizzo, are we? Because it's not piezo, it's pizzo. It's an Italian word. That's how Italians pronounce it. That's my final word on the subject. Anywho. AMS Neve have been coming out with a lot of products recently. They are absolutely on fire. And they have now released the 8424, which is a 24-channel mixing desk that's very much designed for hybrid studios like mine. And if they offered me one of these, I don't think I'd send it back. It's a big lot of Neve sound in a relatively small console, actually. They've managed to fit a lot in here. It's only got 2 mic preamps, which are proper 1073s. It's designed to be used with external preamps of your choice, which I think's quite good. Yeah. So Eduardo in the chat is Italian. He says, I'm pretty close. Thank you very much. I mean, I'm not Italian, so I'm not going to get it perfect, but yes. Thank you. Yes, this is designed so that when you hit play on your DAW, and it's designed properly to bring all the sounds up on 24 channels. But at the same time, you can have 24 channels of microphone inputs coming in separately, but layered onto the same faders. So you can have a proper Neve line preamp sound on every channel going into your converters, but then you can also have your hands on the faders for 24 tracks coming out without having to repatch the entire thing, which was something that I struggled with for a while, because we've got a relatively nice Allen and Heath desk in the studio, and that was always one of the plans, but bringing 24 tracks in was great, but then having another X number of tracks coming out of the DAW, because of the way the desk was made, they didn't overlay. It was one channel for every separate thing, and that could make life quite difficult. Piezo. Okay. Cool. So, it seems with piezo being the final word on it that we were all right in a way. We're all friends and we all got through this together.
Indeed. We can communicate and we want to learn the key thing.
Yes, indeed. And as music techies, we can all communicate through our lack of pronunciation of the word piezo.
I would have just said pizzo. It's one of those things that you learn from other people, don't you, with things like that? If everyone says it one way, that's just the way you say it. So
yeah. In America, apparently, it's common to say piezo or piezo. Right, okay. Yeah, neither of which is right. But yes, as Eduardo quite rightly says, yes. Price on the Neve console is lots. Yours for the low price of £21,540. Woo!
How much?
21.5 grand.
I'll have 3.
Yeah. I'll have one for the bathroom.
Value for money or not?
I don't know, you know. It doesn't have Neve mic preamps in it, apart from 2. It has 2 Neve mic preamps on a 24-track desk. I don't know. I mean, it's going to be quality gear. It's going to be quality gear that is going to last you for the rest of your life. That's for sure. And as far as I'm aware, every control, all the EQs, because it has got all Neve EQs in, and that's important, they are all instantly recallable. Yes. So yeah, the EQs on it are all fully recallable. So you pull up a different mix and the faders move and all the EQs jump to where they should be. That's quite a big deal. So you can have a different set of the Neve EQs on all 24 inputs, and then a separate set of the 24 Neve EQs on the outputs. And as Eduardo quite rightly says, we had Neve summing on every channel, which I am talking to Neve at the moment about playing around with a Neve summing mixer in the studio to do kind of a review on that. And a summing mixer on its own doesn't have any EQs on it, really. It's just the sound of Neve line preamps with 24 of them just mushed together, and that's 16 of them mushed together, which is even less. And so even though that's significantly more affordable than these, it doesn't have any hands-on control at all and no recallability. So this has a lot more power. And there's also space for 2 500 series racks, whatever you want them to be, whether you want them to be compressors or extra EQs or whatever it is that you want them to be. So there is a lot of functionality on here. All the mix Q and AFL buses are all equipped with Marinair transformers, which are some of the best in the world. So, yeah, there are 4 groups as well with 2-band shelving EQs and inserts and direct outs on those as well. So, there's a lot on here if you want to make yourself a hybrid studio. If you want to have the kind of studio where...
yes or no?
I mean, it's for a select number of people.
Mm-hmm. Very political answer.
I mean...
Would you buy one?
The position I'm in, I don't think I would. It's not a bad...
If you could have...
If I was in the studio mixing a lot more than I was filming for the channel, and I had an infinite amount of money, I think I would. Because if I was doing a lot of mixing, just knowing that I have that Neve sound on every channel on the way in and the way out would be amazing and would save me a lot of time. And a couple of days ago, I was talking to David Nozzi from Mixbus TV, and he's in that situation where he mixes 200 or 300 songs a year at least, if not more. And he's got a lot of analog gear in his studio, and his justification is it costs a lot of money, but it means that he can fly through mixes because it's all physically available to him, that he's not opening plugins, and that saves him, even if that saves him an hour on each mix, that means that he can get through more mixes, which the amount that he's charging for mixes, and boy howdy is he, then it makes sense for him as a business model. But cost like this, I think you really have to work that into a business model, because that's a lot. I mean, if you were to work that out on maybe like a 4 or 5 year finance deal and say this piece of gear is going to make me back 4 times as much over that period, or ballpark figure, that makes perfect sense to me. Because this isn't the kind of thing, I don't think, unless you are someone with much money, that just goes and drops 21k and says, I'll have one of those.
No, I mean, you could get it on a lease, but
yeah, well,
very few people will just go and buy that.
Right.
Not on credit.
Well,
but it is like it's a car payment, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
A nice car.
Well, yeah.
Nice-ish car.
Yes. But yeah, I mean, there are stories of people in the 70s buying what were then brand new Neve desks, which cost more than their car, and in some cases more than their house. But yeah, getting massive loans or however they were managing to do it, with the justification that this costs a lot of money, but this is what the studio is going to be centered around. And especially at that time, I think the justification was that alone could bring in enough clients to pay for itself and then some. And that I think that very much held true with things like Neve desks. Because the example that I'm thinking of is from the Sound City documentary. Don't know if you saw that one. Definitely worth watching. Sound City's where Nirvana recorded Nevermind, and Fleetwood Mac recorded Rumours, and loads of other stuff's been recorded there. And that's where that story comes from. And that mixing desk survived many, many years. And when it closed, Dave Grohl bought that desk from Sound City when it closed, and it's now in his studio that's attached to his house. And they recorded Wasting Light on that desk and loads of other stuff. Yeah. Sorry, what have I missed in the chat? So the small Neve interface has that slot. Why not the desk? What slot is that, Marty? This desk does have 2 500 series slots, which I believe are populated with... in this case, they seem to be populated with Neve EQs, but that's probably because they didn't want to advertise a different brand. Yeah, so so Dante, well, I think this has, oh no, that's Ethernet control. This is a very different thing, I think, that this would have been nice to have Dante on it, but this is for the kind of client I think, who would want to buy separate converters and have their pick of how those converters sound. And by using something like Dante, you're then having to have all the analog to digital conversion in the desk. This, I believe, is a fully analog console that is digitally controlled, but there's no conversion going on anywhere. This is an entirely analog desk. This is an 80 series desk. 80 series desks are analog desks, full stop. And yeah, it's a bit weird that it's got Ethernet and USB, but those are to control the actual settings. But this is another thing that I was talking to David Nozzi about, that he's been playing around with a Neve Genesis, which is kind of the big daddy version of this. The Neve Genesis, we're talking 3 or 4 times the price. And if you look at all the encoders, they've got LEDs around them, generally speaking, because they are analog inside, but they are controlled digitally, which is very much the forefront of technology at the moment, which is fascinating because having fully analog circuitry that's digitally controlled means that you get the analog quality. But if I load up a preset from my computer, all the analog stuff changes back to exactly how I want it without any digital conversion of any kind. Yeah, full recall, all relays. That's why it's so expensive. Because I can't think of like a standalone Neve EQ where every control is digitally controlled. And if I could find one, like a mono Neve 1073 EQ, that would probably cost me about $1,000. And considering this has got 48 channels of that, that's 48 grand. Not thinking about all the other features. So thinking about it, this is quite a saving if that's what you want. If what you want is all Neve, all full recall, all analog, but with digital full recall, yeah, now that I think about it, this is a bargain. Yeah.
All Neve all the time.
All Neve all the time. If that's what you want, come and get it. So, to Kurt Cobain's iconic Martin acoustic that I always looked at and thought, what is that? Because it's a heavily converted Martin, which a lot of people don't know. He didn't actually use this acoustically at all. He had a Fender Twin Reverb next to him on stage. So yeah, he was actually using a Fender Twin Reverb with the pickups on this on MTV Unplugged. And yeah, it sold for $6 million.
Wow.
Wow.
I love that guitar.
Yeah, that is ridiculous.
It's one of the greatest, like, it's probably the greatest MTV moment of all time.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And probably one of the greatest live albums ever recorded.
Yeah. I read a massive article only a few days ago about how they weren't keen on the idea. They were umming and ahhing. They hadn't really practiced.
Yeah, because it's in one of the books. Like they said, it's like, what are we gonna do? Like play "Smells Like Teen Spirit" acoustic? How's that gonna work? Like they couldn't understand how their sound would work unplugged. Yeah, I saw that. I can't remember. It's in Heavier Than Heaven or one of the others. But I think it was really clever what they did, which was take some of the songs they knew would work and then played a load of covers.
Yeah. Well, that's it. Apparently they basically went on stage like, okay, right, 1, 2, 3, 4, and it just worked. And yeah, I mean,
didn't he have one of the guys from the Meat Puppets there at one point?
2 of them.
Well?
When they did the Meat Puppet covers, they actually brought 2 members of the Meat Puppets up on stage. Yeah, love that album. But yeah, it turns out it was bought for $6 million by the owner of Rode Microphones, Peter Friedman. So yeah, he is a bit of an audio nut.
Office.
Yeah, just sit and noodle on it every now and again. I mean,
no, you put it in your office. So you'd be like, "Oh, would you like to come for a meeting?" And everyone's like, "Yes." Can I play on the guitar?
Yeah, and just sit there after hours and just play About a Girl over and over and over. Yeah. But yeah, it was a 1959 Martin D18, which was a really nice guitar to begin with. And then, for whatever reason, Kurt Cobain modded the guitar himself. Why am I not surprised? And added Bartolini pickups, which I love Bartolini pickups, and all the controls. And so then when he held it, the controls were all at the top for some reason. But whatever works for you, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, that is... Yeah. It's a pretty-ish looking
Cool.
guitar in the first place, but yeah.
It had a good sound.
It had a very good sound. I wonder if it sounded terrible in person and it was because of the Fender Twin and plugging it in that it actually sounded decent, but I don't know if we'll ever know. But yeah, apparently his daughter Frances Cobain gave the instrument to her ex-husband in a divorce, and it ended up on sale, and yeah, it's been at the Hard Rock Cafe, and now it's probably in his office. So yeah, it broke the record for David Gilmour's Blackstrat, which we talked about when that went on auction for 3.9 million.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, now 6.01 million is the number to beat for the next crazy rich person who wants a guitar. To be fair, that's a pretty iconic guitar. If someone said to me, "You've got all the money in the world, what guitar do you want?" I'd probably be like, "Yeah, I want that one." Because that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah. Did you get the cardigan that went with it as well?
Smelly cardigan. It always looked smelly, that cardigan. It looked like you hadn't washed it in a month. Who knew? Who's to say?
Probably hadn't.
Maybe. So on to the serious news of the week, because this one's quite a big, heavy topic, is Live Nation have just changed all the contracts for 2021, and it doesn't look good for musicians. And yeah, some of the things, one to be expected was that guarantees for artists have gone down by 20% across the board. That one I kind of saw coming. If a show is cancelled, not by the artist, but if for whatever reason outside of their control it's cancelled, artists will receive only 25% of the guarantee, which means that it's not a guarantee at that point.
I'll let you finish on this. The next one.
Yeah, if the artist cancels the performance, they have to pay the promoter twice the artist fee. So let's say that they'd been booked to do a show for £10,000. Instead of cancelling it and getting nothing, they cancel it and they owe the promoters £20,000. I mean, that last one's
before we go to too much detail on it, one thing I'd like to know, do they have any information on what these clauses were this year? So what they've changed from?
Not in this article.
Because context is massively important to this. Because if we go through, okay, so guarantees reduced by 20% across the board, given the current climate for music, as you say, that it's shitty, but it's shitty for everyone. So I get that.
Yeah.
The second one, I imagine, is going to be due to their insurance. So I had to renew our insurance recently, and there's loads of new clauses in there that are COVID related that mean that we're not insured for things that we would have been, or there's clauses in it that basically mean that COVID related things aren't covered. Very specific, literally, like coronavirus, COVID-19 clauses in the insurance. So which I imagine will be the case, insurances for live gigs based on the insurance companies won't be given the same guarantees that they were doing before to the companies, like publishers and promoters and all that. So that will be a massive factor on it, which will be outside of their control at Live Nation regardless. And then the last one, it really depends on well, what was it last time? Was it that they had to pay 50%? They had to pay 100%? Like, I'm guessing it's gone up by the fact that they've mentioned it. It could also have been 200% last year as well, without knowing. If it's gone up from, because I can't imagine they allow artists to cancel without just reason. And that's the other thing. It says that if they cancel the performance, there will have to be certain legal things that you can cancel for, like force majeure and all these things that you can't control. So, without context, I will find it hard to comment much on it further than that.
Yeah. Oh right. I'm looking on a different article from Variety. It looks like if a show is cancelled due to poor ticket sales, the artist will only receive 25% of the guarantee. Which makes more sense because if the artist can't sell the tickets,
shitty, isn't it? Like, because it's their job to sell the tickets, yeah.
Yeah,
but it's them not backing backing themselves for next year, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, it seems like it'd be daft. Like, don't be putting shows on that if you're not sure. Like, I don't like that. Do you see the Flaming Lips concert?
Yeah, I thought that was great that they played in those
They
giant
put everyone
bubbles.
in Zorbs.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the future of live music.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, ultimately, the conversation we can have is how shit it is for artists right now and for publishers and for promoters, because we're all a part of the music industry, rather than it being us versus them. I mean, they may be being really shitty, but don't want to go on kind of cancel culture and saying that they're shitty without context is my only worry.
Yeah.
Because everyone's angry right now. My analogy is that it's essentially like we're in a global version of the TV show Big Brother, where it's just a melting pot and a pressure cooker, for everything. And because we're all stuck at home all the time, people are looking for things to be not looking, but when not looking for things, when things happen, everything is amplified, and there are some things that are being amplified for just reason, and there's some great things happening to improve the world, but then there's also things where people are just like potentially getting excited about things. So I'd like to know that they are being dicks before I say, and I'm happy for them to be dicks.
I'm pulling up now. This is a copy of the Live Nation memo to talent agencies. So this is exactly what they said. Part of it is that I think's odd. Sponsorship. The promoter controls all sponsorship at the festival without any restrictions. An artist may not promote brands on stage or in its productions.
Wow.
Yeah. So basically, they're saying we own you now.
That's shitty.
Merchandise. Purchaser will retain 30% of artist merchandise sales and send 70% to the artist within 2 weeks following the festival.
Okay, strike two.
Yep. Some of this makes some sense. Let's have a look. Now, this one makes more sense. Insurance. The artist is required to maintain its own cancellation insurance, as the promoter is not responsible for the artist fee in the event of a cancellation due to the festival due to weather or force majeure. Force majeure being things like COVID. It's not great, but it's like, yeah, so we're your promoter.
No,
but
that should be what they're getting insured for.
Yeah.
Like, because that's one of the costs, that's a cost of sales for their festival.
Yeah.
Like, if we have to cancel for force majeure, then it's on you completely.
Yep.
Like, because I'm not sure whether they could even get insurance for that, because you're asking someone to insure you for someone else's problem.
Yep. Cancellation due to poor sales. If a show is cancelled due to poor ticket sales, the artist will receive 25% of the guarantee. Force majeure. If the artist's performance is cancelled due to an event of force majeure, including a pandemic similar to COVID-19.
Well, actually, yeah. Wait, shit. Sorry. Think just to stop you on that. There's the artist fee and there's the guarantee. So if a guarantee is a separate part to the artist fee based on something else, then surely you should always get your guarantee. That's why it's called a guarantee.
It's called a guarantee. Yeah. Yep.
Okay, they're out.
Yep.
I'm done with them.
There you go. Yeah.
Fine.
So if there's any sort of pandemic or anything, the promoter will not pay the artist its fee. The artist was responsible for obtaining any cancellation insurance for its performance. Yeah. So, yeah, this is all just a memo. So this is literally what they've put. If the promoter, because of orders of the venue or any government entity, is not permitted to use the full capacity of the venue, then the promoter may terminate the agreement and the artist will refund any money previously paid. So, yeah, if for whatever reason any governmental body says, no, you can't all come in here, it's too close or whatever, Live Nation won't touch it and you have to give everybody their money back.
Well,
yeah. So there you go. Yeah.
So essentially, every single concert that goes forward from at the start of next year, they're going to have the option to cancel at any time and request the money back.
Yep.
So if you're paid the money, you have to keep it in a bank account ready to give them back up to the day before the event. Nah, fuck them.
Yep, that's it. You have to get your own insurance. Basically, you have to get anti-Live Nation insurance. That's what they're saying. Yeah.
Artists have had it hard enough this year, and I know that they'll have had it hard as well because they're a part of it. But like, it doesn't show community. Like something like the industry, like the music industry, like you need a community spirit. Yes, it is a big corporate beast, but when things like this happen, we need to come together to move forward together and show solidarity, not create a bigger divide between artists and sort of the corporate want these to be. Yeah, you'll find a lot more artists trying to put on their own events and stuff.
Yeah. I think that long term this is going to hit Live Nation hard. I mean, their big acts are not going to be too upset with this, and things like that 30% merchandise deal, the bigger acts like, I don't know, U2 or whatever, will turn around to them and say, nah, let's negotiate, because they have the power to do so. Whereas all the people that this actually applies to, so all the artists that are slightly below that on the billing, where they're not the main attractions, or at least not yet if they're up-and-coming bands, they're going to be had over a barrel.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
exactly.
If someone said to you as a band, do you want to support someone like U2? Up until now, you would have gone, well, yes. I mean, even if you're selling #1 albums, you're probably not U2 or the Rolling Stones or the Foo Fighters or one of those names that you can just rattle off that's probably the top 10 or 12 acts that are guaranteed to have, a following where, like, I mean, someone like Guns N' Roses, they're not going to be bothered by this because next year, I mean, if they say, oh, tickets are on sale for more shows, they're going on sale in 3, 2, 1, oh, they're sold out. They don't have to worry. And they can probably have insurance against this kind of thing anyway. But yeah. Anyway,
yeah, it sounds like they're being pretty shitty to me.
Yes.
I tried to defend it. Didn't want to jump on cancel culture focus on something, but no, cancel on Live Nation.
Yeah, this is literal cancel culture from Live Nation. Yeah. So, moving on to Obsession. I love this article headline. Obsession, the new OBXA-inspired aftershave from Synapse Audio. It's not real. The plugin is... I don't think the aftershave is. But this just made me laugh that Synapse Audio have made an Oberheim OBXA, which... Yeah, we talked about this probably only a couple of weeks ago on a different plugin manufacturer. I think it was Arturia, made their OBXA. And then before that, IK Multimedia had released their OBXA at a significant discount. It's kind of like buses. I've been dying for a good emulation of an OBXA synth for years. And then suddenly all the companies are going, hey, look, try ours, try this one, try this one, try this one. I'm like, too many. I only wanted one. It's just really funny how, this kind of thing I've been waiting for so long, and then suddenly it's like, dang, surprise. Typical. But this one's 79 quid, which I'll listen to the demos. That may well be worth checking out, because it's one of the hardest synths to get right, because they have a certain fatness to them that's just hard to put your finger on. But it's the kind of thing where, like, if you put Jump on by Van Halen, that first bass note can just rattle speakers. It's that that bass just makes everything rattle. That's really hard to get quite right in programming. So if they've got that right, I'll be very impressed. Now from synths to virtual cables, a lot of people who know that how we do these live streams, we use a program called Voicemeeter. And there's a cut down version of Voicemeeter called VB Cable, which I actually have running in the studio right now for things like OBS broadcasts. And now that's available for Mac, which, I mean,
I was talking to a friend about this very issue recently, so this is really good news.
Yeah, you're not the only person. I think because a lot of people are now streaming and doing things from home, we're all looking for solutions to get sound from one program to another. And so being able to just do that and just send your audio to one of these VB cables and it'll just magically appear on the other side of it. Very, very useful. And so, yeah, very cool. My guess is that now this is available for Mac, I don't think that Voicemeeter is going to be very far behind. And that, well, I mean, if the developer is working on Mac now, how much of a stretch is it going to be? They already have the GUI programmed. They already have
they just need to make the audio, so they're doing the patch and the routing. So
yeah, and since they've done VB Cable, which is kind of the simplified version of the same thing, I can't see it being that far a leap. So probably not that far down the line. Maybe a few months, because it's not the kind of thing you can just do overnight, I'm sure, but it's the kind of thing that will be greatly received on Mac, I'm sure. So yeah, it's donationware as well, so you can donate between €5 and €25 if you so desire, and you get more channels if you make more donations. So if you need something that's got loads and loads of inputs and outputs, I mean, it's not crazy expensive. So yeah, go get it if you're on Mac and you need that. So quickly want to mention Armored Amplification make a really cool amp called the Sabo, and they now make a version that uses 6550 valves. A friend of mine, Jeremy Vareo, has done a demo of the Armored Amplification Sabo, the original version, on his channel, and it sounds absolutely brutal. It just kind of shreds, and it's got switches for sizzle, body, grit, and bright.
Ooh.
So yeah, you can get a really good sound out of it, and if it's not quite what you're looking for, you look at the switches and you go click, and there you go. And yeah, 6550s are the same valves that are used in the Ampeg SVT, the big daddy bass amp, the one that you see on pretty much every big stage in the world, and they can rattle the floor. So yeah, they've made a new version that's based around that. And yeah, those valves, they are huge. They are big, fat things. Yeah, they're not messing around. Yeah. And yeah, you get an appropriate amount of volume out of them, I can tell you that. And look at the size of these transformers. Those are solid iron, those things. That's going to weigh an absolute ton. I mean, it looks like he's designed this to be used in a big head, but looks like you can convert it down to something smaller if you so desire. You can see from these big kind of blank bits here, because that happens a lot. That the amps now, especially like vintage Marshalls, were designing these really big wooden heads, and the actual amp was probably only 2/3 wide, but they did that because it was the same width as the cabinets, and it just kind of looked right. So yeah, but if you've not got enough space in the car and you're trying to do this on a limited size, you can actually get cabinets for things like this that are way smaller. So there's always a way. And I'm quite impressed at the price. The price is between $1,700 and $1,750. The custom Tolex options an extra $50. That's relatively affordable for what this is. I was looking at a Soldano recently, and they were over $3,000 for one of those. Same with a Rev generator. I would love a Rev generator, but with the price being over $3,000 US, that is more than I can touch. For a single guitar amp, I mean, they're very versatile guitar amps. They're very nice guitar amps. Very, very nice guitar amps, but that's a lot of money. But yeah, for half the price, you can get these things. And yeah, check out some demos. Armored Amplification Sabo. They are absolutely brilliant. So,
cool.
From the black and absolutely plain to the bright and colourful, Manly Labs make some amazing gear. It's all Valve, and it's all really good quality. This is a new version of the Massive Passive EQ. I've always wanted a Massive Passive. It's a stereo passive EQ that's like the old Pultex that sounds really, really nice and is really configurable. They're making a limited edition version called the Massive Pride, which I thought was quite nice. And they're making a run of 50 of them. And they've got a very nice, brightly coloured faceplate. And they've actually stamped the name on it. Oh, yeah. I'd love to have one of these in the rack. It'd jump out at you. I mean, not to mention that the sound is absolutely wonderful on these things. But yeah, I mean, they've actually like laser etched or however they do it, Massive Pride in the front. I thought that was cool. Unfortunately for me, the price of that's even more than that amp I was talking about. I looked at the price of these on Thomann. So here's the price on Thomann in pounds. Whoa. £5,177. Free shipping. Yeah, I would hope so. I would hope someone flies it over and delivers it to me personally for that amount of money for an EQ. Gee whiz. Actually, that might be cheaper thinking about how... They sound incredible. The Manly Lab stuff is dream gear for me. You generally speaking have one of these strapped across your master bus. A lot of mastering studios have the stuff like this because the noise floor is so low and the sound is so nice and so subtle if you want it to be subtle and quite big if you want it to sound quite big. And they're just really, really nice, and they're all handmade, and it's all lots and lots of valves, and it's got a transformer the size of your fist hanging out the back because why not? And yeah, I want one, and I would really quite like the Pride one because that's very pretty, and that's just a lot of money.
Have we got anything for Behringer Corner this week? Or?
I'm afraid not. I looked and didn't find anything for Behringer Corner. However, I did find something related to NAMM. Our pilgrimage, which is hopefully going to be an annual thing now. But Summer NAMM was, of course, cancelled for very obvious reasons. But there's now going to be a NAMM U virtual summit with 12 free webinars. Never did like the word webinar. Over 4 days. So that's going to happen very soon, 7th of July to 10th of July. And there are some very interesting talks that are going to be done, like including the future of mobile music production and collaboration, how disruptive technology will reshape the industry, home and project studios, how to get your small studio to sound like a big one. So I might tune in for some of these myself.
Yeah, there was quite a few that we wanted to go to when we were at NAMM. We just didn't have the time to. sit through them.
That's one of the biggest issues with NAM, really, is depending on what you are there to do. Some of the things there, like some of these seminars that are fascinating but are an hour long or 2 hours long, you don't have an hour. You don't have 2 hours because there's many thousands of companies there, and you want to talk to them all, but you don't just want to go, hey, good to see you, bye. You want to really try and get to know some of these people.
Yeah, have a proper chat.
Yeah, and each one of those takes a certain amount of time, and you only have a certain amount of days and a certain amount of time, and
Talking about only having a certain amount of time,
yes,
we have run over, and I do have some responsibilities this evening, so I may have to leave the podcast early if we're going to have some questions as usual.
Yes, well, that is the end of the news.
The news. We need to change this so that it doesn't say it's time for the news.
So, yes.
Because it's not time for it, it's the end of it.
It's time for the end of it. Everyone seems to have gone rather quiet in the chat. Do we have any questions this week?
There was quite a lot of chatting going on.
There was indeed. And then it all just kind of went eerily silent. We are still live, aren't we? Yes, we are. You can let us all know that we are live by hitting that like button. That would be very much appreciated.
Indeed.
Yes, indeed. Oh, in other news, we made Twitch affiliates this week. So we are now affiliated on Twitch. That only took half an hour of filling in tax documents. Yay!
Is that because, did you reference the YouTube?
No, that's partnership. Affiliates like the one below that. We can talk to them about that. But yeah, I mean, with the whole thing that's gone on with the end of Mixer and Facebook gaming, that's going to be a lot of conversations going on at Twitch right now.
Oh yeah, we can subscribe. Subscribe to us on Twitch with your Twitch Prime.
Yeah.
If you have Amazon Prime, you will have Twitch Prime. Even if you don't watch Twitch, head over to twitch.tv/Hotball Studios, hit that subscribe button, log in with your Amazon account,
Absolutely.
and you can subscribe to us for free.
Give us that sweet Jeff Bezos cash.
Yeah, because do you know how much money he makes a day?
Go on.
Guess.
28 million.
200 and something million a day.
A day. Christ.
Yep. Ridiculous.
Explain the time clocking in computers. Clocking as in digital audio clocking, or as in CPU clocking? Because I can talk about both, but it depends which one you want me to talk about, because they're very different.
Right. Well, as I said, I do have responsibilities, so I'm going to go to my BRB screen.
And be responsible.
And if you're still waffling in a little while when I'm done with what I need to do, then I'll be back. But otherwise, I bid you all adieu and see you next week.
Okay. All right. Goodbye. Maybe see you soon. So, CPU clocking in computers is actually relatively simple. Modern computers run on a time that's called a front side bus, or FSB. And that usually goes in multiples of 100 megahertz. And there's usually a timing, literally a digital crystal clock on the motherboard that keeps that time. That literally ticks at 100 megahertz. And so if you've got a processor that runs at, I don't know, let's say 4.2 gigahertz, that uses that clock and what's called a multiplier. So the multiplier is 42. So it's 100 megahertz times 42. And that's how you get... The processor does 42 calculations in that next tick of the clock. Or yeah, that's it, because that's 4,200 megahertz. Yeah, that's right. So that's how that runs. And you can actually overclock the front side bus slightly, but that can make things really unstable, so I tend not to do that. And then with modern processors, in terms of power saving, they will decide every few milliseconds on the fly, depending on what you've set in software, how much of the multiplier they are using. So that same processor might throttle right down to running at something like 700 megahertz if there's nothing doing, just to save power, and that's just turning the multiplier down to 7, so it's only doing 7 calculations per clock, but the clock never changes. It's just the number of calculations per stroke of the clock that are going on. That's how clocking works. And beyond that, there's things like memory speed, which is also determined separately, but then there's a fabric in terms of a memory controller, which generally modern PCs is on the processor, but never used to be, that deals with communication at a different speed between the memory and the processor, and interfaces that and works out the ratio of timings and all that kind of thing. Which is why in the previous PC stream that I did earlier in the week, I was talking about things like AMD's Infinity Fabric and memory and working at things like a 2-to-1 ratio, because that's a nice number. And nice numbers do tend to work better. It's like having properly tuned gears on a car. You can drive a car that's got gears that don't quite feel like the right ratios for what you're doing, but when it's all been tuned right by the manufacturers, it feels like a better drive. It's that kind of thing. Have I run across any soft synths that replicate the old Roland JV sounds that are reasonably priced? Nope. Sorry to be a letdown, but Roland keep their cards quite close to their chest. Your best bet, honestly speaking, is get yourself an old Roland JV unit off eBay. Just get one. They pop up every now and again, and just get hold of one and use a MIDI USB interface, and then just play that back, stereo or even mono, into your interface, and use the MIDI that you've got as like a master controller and feed that in and print that through your interface. If you're using Reaper, you can use a plugin called Reinsert, which will then treat your external MIDI instruments like an old JV series or anything that makes sound via MIDI as a plugin. So, yes. There you go. That's as far as I know. If Roland are going to come out with something like that, great. But that's not something I'm aware of at this time. Hello from Twitch, not Mixer. Yes. Yeah, so we will still be on Mixer for the next couple of weeks. But yeah, best thing to do if you're using Reinsert as well, I would recommend that once you've got a part on a song that you're happy with the sound, do render that to a new stem. And all you have to do is right click on the track and go to render and freeze tracks. And there's an option for render to stereo or mono track and mute originals. That way you keep your MIDI, you keep your Reinsert data, but you've got a hard wave copy of the audio, and that way, if for some reason your hardware stops working, or you changed a setting, or you had it just right and can't remember how it was, or any number of things, you've got a copy of what you had, and it's worth doing that. I've definitely found out the hard way when I've come back to projects years later and gone, oh, that's just MIDI. Oh wait, that was controlling a synth that I don't own anymore. Yeah, I've done that. Yeah, we were just saying, if anyone wants to jump on Twitch right now, twitch.tv/HopPoleStudios, if you have Amazon Prime, then you already have, if you sign up through Twitch, you already then have Twitch Prime. And through Twitch Prime, you can subscribe to our channel without paying any money, because your Twitch Prime gives you a subscription. And subscriptions on Twitch are very different to subscriptions on YouTube. You subscribe on YouTube, you just click a button and you get notifications of all the new stuff. Subscriptions on Twitch are very different. They are $4.99 a month, so they are paid, but all the things like adverts go away. So, like I said, if you have Amazon Prime, then every month you can click to resubscribe to us, and we get half of the $4.99 of Jeff Bezos' money, because Twitch are owned by Amazon. And so because you have Amazon Prime, they already give you that as a bonus. We get the money. You don't have to pay the money because you've already paid Amazon the money because you've got Amazon Prime, and everybody's happy. That is literally what I do. There's a Twitch channel I follow called Loading Ready Run. Wonderful comedians from Canada. I support them every month from my Twitch Prime, which is paid for by my Amazon Prime. And since this lockdown, oh boy, have I used Amazon a lot. And I can get all this stuff like, you know, I got a ton of drumsticks from Promark 5A. They are 5A 565 rebounds, which are kind of my jam, and I got them next day. No extra charge. All the stuff that I was talking about earlier, like the soldering kit, all from Amazon. And yeah, the Prime is paid for itself already, which is great. And there's also Amazon Prime Video, which I don't really use, but Mrs. uses it. Happy days. She watches stuff like Outlander, which is only on Amazon Prime. Yeah. Yes. I mean, don't worry about having a chat room to yourself, just because if you look on the screen, everybody's there. There's another thing coming up. I'm just going to move the Liam Will burb so you can actually see his full thing. We'll be right back. Yeah, but it's on the screen. It's on the screen. The screen. And yeah, in November, there's going to be a charity event that I watch every year called Desert Bus for Hope. And that's a big charity event that happens on Twitch. And it's the guys from Loading Ready Run plus 100 other people. And they do this horrible game called Desert Bus, which is from an old Sega Mega CD game that never actually got released. Fun fact. Maybe I should order a Logitech 902 mouse from Amazon and just do a video of it for Glenn Fricker when it actually arrives in one piece. Because, yeah, I don't know if anybody's seen that, but Glenn Fricker from Spectre Sound Studios ordered a mouse from Amazon, and he opened it and someone had switched it out for like an old 90s ball mouse with the cable cut off. And so he sent that back and ordered a new one, and that was a screw job as well. That someone's been stealing the mice and replacing them with fakes. Yeah, I mean, I'm still not sure if that second one was just a comedy sketch. I think it was real. I've not talked to him since. I've not seen him, but yeah, it's blah, 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 blah. Come on, brain. Oh, actually, hold the phone. Hold the phone on that previous. I'm just gonna mute this. Roland JV1080 VST finally released. Apparently, and I'm just gonna see if this shares the. It's not shared the right video, because why would it? That would be useful. There we go. There is your video, sir. Roland Super JV 1080 in a plugin. My word, they actually did it. So yeah, there you go. I played with a 5080, which I think was the half rack version that was slightly more modern back when I was at university in mid 2000s. And yes, there you go. That exists. It's real. Ladies and gentlemen, we got him. So yeah. Personally, I never really liked those sounds, but if that's your thing, there you go. Hey, happy days. Well, yeah, of course Glenn was Mr. Angry. I mean, if someone's messed you around with, shipping theft, then you should be angry. When that happened to me and Scott last week, I do need to check with UPS because they've definitely not found the parcel. I'm sure of it because they're lazy and they're not going to investigate properly. But I probably should have been more angry than I was. Scott was livid, but yeah. Oh yeah, probably not cheap. Yeah, that sounds like Roland to me. Let's find it. Oh, it's on the Roland Cloud. Available within Roland Cloud Manager, which is a thing I do not have. Install your free software. Oh, so you buy these things then. Right, okay. Okay, so... And version 2.0 of the Roland Cloud Manager, I think we talked about at the time. But yeah, the JV1080. $20 a month? I mean, if you're an absolute Roland fiend, that doesn't seem unreasonable, but I mean, if you just want it for a little bit, then I don't know, man. Let's have a look. So there's Xenology Cloud Concerto. I mean, some of the classic Roland synths have been done by Arturia, and that's all I really need. Like the Juno and the like the old Jupiter. Those, and even maybe a 303. Those are all I really need. Oh, XV5080. Oh, so there is a 5080. There's a 5080 synth on Roland Cloud as well. I'm going to switch back to that because this is really interesting. Yeah, maybe it wasn't the 5080 then that I was using, but it was something like this. It was like a half rack version of this. Yeah, Twitch does have less delay than the YouTubes, but since most of... And that's actually with YouTube set on low latency mode, would you believe? But yeah, there's all sorts of... There's even a sound canvas as a VST. That's ridiculous. So I could get stuff like all the Roland MT32 sounds from... I'll have to let Nostalgia Nerd know about this. And maybe see if I can get a message through to LGR as well. Because this could be interesting on modern hardware, having that nice Roland MT32 sound. The classic sound canvas stuff. Because in their day, the sound canvas was huge. As like, it was miles ahead of anything that you could get at the time. But it wasn't cheap. But yeah, there's the 1080 there, the 5080. I believe the synth that I was using had all that stuff in, as well as a couple of expansion cards because it was more modern stuff. But yeah, the IRA System 8 and System 1 are in there as software. That's very clever. I've never really checked out their... the SRX. Oh, all the expansions, yeah. Yes. What did I see what happened to David's new table on Mixbus TV? No, I did not. Do tell. His new table. Let's hear the story, Mage Prometheus, of David Nozzy's table. Because I have to admit, I've seen David's channel around for a good few years now, but I've not really watched it religiously. I've watched a couple of his videos, but I think I was already at a level when he came on the scene where his videos were like the basic stuff, and I was like kind of beyond that at that point. I always liked Glenn's stuff just because he always had that rah kind of thing. And I always watched Fluff stuff as well. Fluff and Glenn have been doing this a long time. And typically, I keep saying I should have got into doing YouTube stuff a lot earlier because we've had the cameras that we have since Glenn and Fluff started, and we've had the studio since then as well, but I kind of missed a trick. So they're much bigger than I. Terra acoustic virtual instruments. Ooh, flagship virtual piano. Huh. Some cool stuff on there. Robo Hop. Trapped. Oh, that's Blip Blop. I mean, I almost want to get this for $20 a month just for a plugin called Blip Blop. I mean, I've already got a plugin called I think it was called Cody, actually, by Ugritone, who used to be called oh, come on. It's a several word thing, and all I can think of now is Have I Got News for You, which is definitely not the thing. But have I got news for you? No, Loud. Is it Loud? Whatever it was the kind of thing that was harder to remember, but already came. It might get Loud. It might get Loud Productions, which is already a production, so I think that was an issue for them. Yeah, so there's 808s, 909s. I've already got tons of those, even though they're not the official Roland stuff. Oh, SH2. There's some weird stuff in here. Yeah. Mix. I think I'll give that a miss. Because that looks a little weird. Although it does look like it's got like heat maps for different frequency spaces. That could be an interesting thing for visualization. Yeah. Anyway, yes, I think that is a good time to wrap the stream up. It's been a very enjoyable podcast, ladies and gentlemen. And so I think this is a good time to draw it to a close because, as always, there is lots to do. I'm going to pack up all these microphones and hopefully finish editing the video with David Nozzy tonight that's going to go live on Sunday. Hopefully get it out to the patrons sooner. And I'm almost done with filming a massive project where I've been upgrading my old Stratocaster. That's turned into a 35-minute video. There's a video coming out every day now until at least Monday. So we are... Yeah. Oh, we bought an expensive desk from a French company. DHL smashed it and delivered it with DHL repacked tape all over it. Repacked. Yeah. Yeah, some of these delivery companies just do not care. But there you go. Yeah, so hopefully that'll never happen to us, but like if I ever ordered a desk from Neve, fun fact, I live 10 minutes drive from the Neve factory. I would probably hire a transit van and load it into the van myself. Because then if it gets smashed, at least I know it's my own fault. But yes, that's a good place to leave it. So we'll be back for the podcast this time next week, 8 p.m. English time. Be there or be slightly cuboid. And tomorrow night, 8 p.m., we're doing another computer stream talking about computer builds that are a bit more affordable than the one I put together for myself, which... Like I said, in a couple of weeks, when AMD release these XT processors, I think I'll actually be ordering all the bits. And then hopefully by that point, we'll have enough live streaming equipment in the studio to do a full live stream of building the live stream PC as well as the main PC. That's going to be a weird one, but that's going to be fun. So, yes, indeed. Thank you, everybody, for watching. It's been a lot of fun, and we'll see you either tomorrow or next week. Thanks, everybody. See you soon. Goodbye.